Hello, and welcome to the Disability Justice Q&A with Jennifer Kumiyama. My name is Kalen Sakima. My pronouns are he, him, and I'll be moderating today's session. The visuals in this session's video only support what's spoken. The visuals do not provide any additional information. Jennifer Kumiyama is an actor, singer, and a disabilities advocate. She was born with arthrogryposis and uses a wheelchair daily. Jennifer was cast in Disney's Aladdin, a musical spectacular at Disney's California Adventure Park, becoming the first performer in a wheelchair to ever be put on Disney stage in the world. Her other credits include MTV's Awkward and the Academy-nominated film The Sessions. Jennifer currently works with a consulting firm to elect more women, women of color, and members of the LGBTQ and disabilities community. Welcome to the first ever annual Manfest.
Thank you, Kalen. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. I know I just condensed your entire bio into like 30 seconds, it feels like, but I wanted the attendees to hear more about you. So could you tell us more about yourself?
Absolutely. So a lot of people call me Kumi, so you can go ahead and address me as Kumi. My pronouns are she, her. And just for a visual description, for those who need it, I am a mixed race woman of color. I've got tan skin. I'm wearing a green, yellow, and white dress. I have long curly hair, almond-shaped eyes, and I am in a room right now where there's some macrame art made by my friends in front of a white wall. I am, again, as I said, I'm mixed. I identify as Asian and Pacific Islander and Black. I was born with a disability called arthrogryposis, which affects all four of my limbs. And that means that I have very limited range of motion in my arms and my legs. And I need help with things like that you do every day, like getting ready, daily living things around the house, cooking, eating, and a lot. But that doesn't stop me from, doing the things that I do. I am a performer by passion. It's my number one passion. But my other passion is also being an advocate for disability justice in my community. I'm currently a commissioner for the Citizens Advisory Commission for the City of Long Beach. And I'm also a delegate for the California Democratic Party. In my day job, as you stated, I work for a firm that helps people get elected into local office. So that's what I do, and that's a little bit more about me. And I'm currently located in Long Beach, California.
Awesome. So just like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Awesome. What was it like working for Disney as a performer with a disability?
It was definitely like a relationship, at that time that when I arrived as a performer at Disney, I was the first performer that the company had ever dealt with a physical disability that used a wheelchair on the stage. So it was it was a lot of learning about each other, me learning what it's like to work for a corporation as a theatrical performer, and then the corporation learning how to work with and accommodate an employee / performer with a physical disability. So it was a lot of like going along the way and seeing what we could do together to make sure that the company provided me what I needed to do my job at my best.
Awesome. So as a mixed AAPI, what was it like when you told your family that you wanted to pursue a career in the entertainment industry?
Well, I got a lot of flack from my Asian side of my family that, being an entertainer is not something that's sustainable. Mostly from my grandmother. But they came around, and I think it really hit them when the first time they saw Aladdin at Disney, how much of an impact it made on my life and my happiness as a human being, and how much it helped me in my everyday life, help other people just by setting an example, being an example of people with disabilities in entertainment, because it is not something that you see organically or honestly, portrayed.
Yeah. I mean, I performed with you, so I can totally see the the audience's perspective and with meet and greet, so I get to experience it on another level. But
Mhm.
speaking of challenges, could you speak to any that exist in today's entertainment industry for artists with disabilities and how those issues can be addressed?
Yes, I do think that the entertainment industry is doing very good at making the attempt to make the industry inclusive by intersecting uh, talent with disabilities. At the same time, the industry is still giving away roles um, that are meant to be portrayed by people with disabilities to people who don't have disabilities, and I think that's a huge problem. It's it doesn't give the people who it doesn't give our consumers the true representation of people with disabilities in media. Therefore,
Hmm.
it kind of hurts and hinders how people with disabilities in our community see themselves. Um,
Hmm.
we have a lot of roles that are played by amputees that are meant to be portrayed as amputees or people in wheelchairs played by people who don't have, an amputation or who don't use a wheelchair. And I honestly think the only way that we will ever come to a point where that is something that is automatically um, done in the industry is if people stop taking roles that don't belong to them.
Hmm.
And I hate to say some of my favorite actors and actresses are, guilty of that, and I just think that that is the huge issue in the entertainment industry. Also, too, I always get hit with create your own content. If there's no content out there for you, create your own content, and I'm like, I'm a performer. I'm not a content creator. Like my resume has performing on it. There's no, I'm not a writer. I mean, I'm not a content creator. So don't ask me to do your job, you
Hmm.
know. And I remember going to an audition one time, and it was for musical theater, and I was, as most times that I am, the only person in a wheelchair in the room, and we were
Hmm.
going over choreography, and the choreographer said, "Oh, just make something up," and it literally threw me off my game. I was like, make something. I'm not a choreographer. Like, you called me back, I was going to be here. So it was your responsibility to create
Hmm.
something to perform for you to see if what I have to offer is what you're looking for. So
Yeah.
it's instances like that. Like, don't welcome me in the room, but you know, not completely welcome me by making me do other things that other performers aren't having to do. Other performers
Hmm.
don't go to a choreography callback and have to create their own choreo. Uh,
Hmm.
and it was literally, she just literally the whole time she's like, just create something. And I was like, what? I could sit here and spin in circles for, I mean, what what do you
Yeah.
want me to do?
Oh my goodness. We need
Yeah,
to have a talk off
yeah,
camera. I want to know about this one because I got stories too. But
yeah.
but staying on the entertainment industry, what is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to a person with a disability within the industry? So I know you mentioned like the whole
Mhm,
content creator, but
mhm.
are there anything else that pops up
Yes,
or
going to auditions that aren't accessible.
oh.
I'm tired of auditioning on blacktop parking lots in the dead of summer when everyone else gets to go up a flight of stairs and be in the air condition. Not having restrooms, just making accommodations. If you're asking for people with disabilities to audition for your work, you need to accommodate people with disabilities. Um,
Hmm.
this means access to the building in which the audition is being held, access to rehearsal halls, access to filming locations or performance locations. These are all things that people with disabilities need to
Hmm.
to complete their job, but also they need it to thrive and be good at their job.
Yeah, and what I've learned with being friends for years is sometimes I need to give you a little bit more notice because you get to plan.
I
And
have
what, yeah, and what that means for you is not maybe the same for somebody else. So
no.
that's another thing that I feel also needs to be acknowledged of. You have to give people advance notice so that they can actually
Yes.
show up.
Yes, I appreciate you bringing that up because, being spontaneous is not something that people with disabilities it's not something that most people with disabilities have the luxury of being spontaneous. I
Mm-hmm.
have to plan, to be driven to doctor's appointments, auditions, rehearsal, things like that. I can't just show up on the fly, So
Mm-hmm.
giving me advance notice to plan and making sure that, I have the help in the morning to get up and get out on time and that I can schedule an aide to go with me to help me with the things that I need assistance with. You're absolutely right. And I didn't think about that. So thank you for, I feel really fortunate to have friends who I feel like sometimes you guys understand my life more than I understand my own. I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to be like, hey, this too, but
No, it's very true.
As somebody on the more of an able-bodied side, it's something that I got to learn, and I just made it a part of our friendship rather than, yeah. But
Yeah.
jumping back on topic, the the term disability consistently gets brought up, and I just wanted to get your opinions and thoughts about how do you feel about that with people with disabilities? Is that actually inclusive, or what's your thoughts
I
on
think
that?
it all depends. It's a case by case situation. How do people identify? Providing people space to say, this is who I am, this is how I identify, and respecting that. And I think it's as simple as that. Asking people, simply asking the question, how do you identify? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and for me, I definitely identify as someone with a disability. But I also identify as, numerous amounts of other things, like woman of color, mixed Asian race. I identify as a plus size girl. I'm happy about it.
Yeah,
And just things like that. So
I'm glad you brought that up because, as you know, I lost a part of my foot mobility, and so technically my foot is a disability that I'm new to, but it makes me uncomfortable to say that I'm a person with a disability. So I do think it's a good point that you bring that up of it it varies on a spectrum. But does it do you think the industry is including people with disabilities when they are striving for the disability and inclusion movement or shift?
can you repeat that?
Yes, hopefully. So the disability, not disability, I'm sorry, the diversity, inclusion, shift, and movement that is very
Mm-hmm.
present right now. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel that the entertainment industry is authentically including people with disabilities in that direction?
Here's the thing: if you're talking about diversity and inclusion, you need to always include people with disabilities, just like you need to always include people of color,
Mm-hmm.
women, people from the LGBTQ community, and so on and so forth. Diversity is a huge, huge world of, it's a melting pot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and but you can't be genuinely discussing diversity and inclusion without including everybody in that conversation. And people with disabilities need to be included in that conversation.
Yes, for me, I feel like it needs to be a full open door, not just 70% open.
Mm-hmm.
But is the industry creating more jobs for people with disabilities, do you feel?
It's so hard to tell with, like, the repercussions of the pandemic.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's been a rough, almost, how long have we been going at this? Over a year and a half now.
I lost count.
Yeah, so it's so hard to, like, give a true answer to that.
Mhm.
But prior to that, I do feel like they're making baby steps. But I feel like the industry itself has, the capacity to make leaps and bounds. And
Mhm.
we're sitting there at a baby step pace when we could be, on a spaceship launching into space, and it's just not, they're not using their full potential to be inclusive.
Mhm.
truly diverse.
And this is just friend to friend from my brain. Like, when you speak they, are you speaking industry as a whole, or are you addressing that towards the creators or producers? Like, in what aspect?
I think it's all aspects: creators, producers, people who hire our backstage teams, people who
Mhm.
hire our customers, our makeup artists, our every aspect of entertainment, in front of the camera or on stage, and behind the stage or behind the camera. Um, there needs to be more disability representation in all spaces of entertainment.
Well, even when it comes to the representation within working, like,
Mhm.
are there any, I don't want to say horror stories, but do you have any story that you're willing to share about interacting with somebody on the job in the entertainment industry that has never worked with somebody with a disability, and like, how did you maneuver, or how did you make that work?
So at Disney, I came in contact with a lot of people, a lot of, especially our customers who, have the intimate task of helping me get dressed and undressed and into costume and back into street clothes. So I
Hmm.
just try to be really open and set like the precedent of, if you have any questions or you don't feel comfortable doing anything, by all means, let me know, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings. And sometimes that went well with people, and other times people didn't feel comfortable enough to say that they weren't comfortable. But when somebody with a disability gives you the green light to say, especially in a working environment, like, you don't feel comfortable, that's
Hmm.
not at your fault. Handling or assisting someone with a disability is not something that we are all equipped to do.
Hmm.
Whether it be mentally, emotionally, or even physically. So, I think having an open line of communication with the people who are helping me is for me key. And I think that's why I was a really shy child, very shy child, but I'm not a very shy adult today.
No, she's not.
So I think so I think that's why I I am the way that I am, because it's like I want people to feel comfortable, and I want them to see, oh, she's really open. I can be just as open with her as
Mhm.
she is with me.
It's also a good reminder from my producer head of, like, don't always leave it up to the performer.
Mhm.
It's also the responsibility of the team, of the company, to make sure that they're hiring well educated people, and they're actually making it a topic of discussion on how to make it very comfortable for the performers.
Mhm.
So I get how you had to represent yourself, but I do feel that there is a huge responsibility that companies also need to step up,
Mhm.
because it shouldn't be a one-way street.
No, no. And that reminds me of people with invisible disabilities who don't have the luxury of,
Hmm.
opening a door and people automatically recognizing that they have a disability, which, I mean, I have a visible disability, so I'm not speaking from experience, but I would imagine that it's more difficult because, you have to sit there and explain, or choose, should I tell this person or should I not? Like, if I disclose this to this employer, will it hinder my employment and things like that? So I think just keeping
Hmm.
an open mind about people and their abilities, regardless of what they look like, if they're walking or if they're in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
that they might have a disability. I think being cognizant of the differences that people have will definitely lend itself to a more diverse and inclusive workspace.
So is that, like, well, first of all, are you still actively performing? Are you
I'm
doing, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No.
No, no, I was just gonna say, are you still a full-time performer, or are you that and something else?
I'm still open. I still audition. I haven't done anything since the beginning of COVID. Not by choice, just by, there's nothing really there. But I do work full time, in politics now.
Yeah.
So I work full time at the firm, and I'm fortunate enough to have a boss who is more like my stage mom.
What's that like? No.
Oh gosh, what's that person's birthday? Can you sing? No.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Oh gosh,
We're in a restaurant.
That's like going to a part of a group and there's like, oh, we're bored, just dance. I'm like, what? No. Yeah, no. But I wanted to bring up that. Well, I thought it was an awkward question because I presented it awkwardly. But it's for an able-bodied person or a person with a non-disability. There's a different types of like survival jobs. And with your pathway, you chose to use your experiences and to use your connection with audiences to actually create your own niche, like little pathway as I don't want to say a side hustle because you're important you're have important work, but it's also driven you towards an and path.
Yes,
if that makes sense. And so is there anything that you're currently working on now that you are able to disclose with us or you would like to share?
I'm just working on getting good people elected into office. Here in California, we're facing a gubernatorial recall, which is super important. So if you're in California, please vote no on the recall and don't put anyone else's name in there. They're all clowns. That was unprofessional, but it's the truth. So September 14th, turn in your ballot by then. Make sure it's postmarked or go somewhere to your nearest voting pool. I've been working a lot on that, obviously.
How many times have you said that?
Actually, I just think it's important, we need good elected officials who represent us fully, and who accept us as we are and does their best in, intersecting the many differences of their constituency through policy to create a more equitable life for everybody. And that's really important to me. But, I'm just, I do a lot in my neighborhood through my neighborhood association. I speak at a lot of events, whether it be about being a performer with a disability or, just being a resident in a city. There's a lot of things that happen in a city that are, there's these discussions that happen at a table. And I had a boss once tell me, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And that was so eye-opening for me. And I was like, I'm not about to be on nobody's menu. So I make sure that I'm at as many tables as possible to represent people like me and to speak up for, the things that we need to thrive in our communities at every level.
And I do want to mention, sorry, my plant is falling, so I need to move it. But I do want to, for those of you who don't know Jennifer, she is at the table. Like we share a Google Calendar, and I have to fight to schedule something with her. And it's not because she doesn't want to connect with her people, but she's so passionate about, oh, you're gonna get me crying. You're so passionate about making it equal.
Yeah.
But dang it.
I love you. I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah, it's hard. I am a very social person, and I was talking to a friend and colleague of mine last night where I was like, I feel like I'm in a position where I feel like I'm starving for something. And I definitely miss performing, and I definitely miss my performing friends. I think it was hard to really transition from being a full-time performer for 13 years and going into a regular workspace where we had all our performer isms and things like that. Yeah. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. Because sometimes I feel so guilty, like people are like, can you hang out? I'm like, I can't. And I totally forgot that you have access to my calendar. Anxiety. I'm sorry that anything gives you anxiety too.
I'm just stalking you on the side,
Yeah, yeah.
But no, there are people who are active and don't mind sharing, and there are some people who just don't feel comfortable, and I feel like it's more than just you. It's about the community, and you're always fighting for equal representation and inclusion. So I love that about you. But I swear I could talk about this all day and talk to you, and I mean, I could go on and on and on. But before we run out of time, I wanted to know if you had any suggestions for our MAM attendees on how they could carry out the vision of a more inclusive industry and how we could be more supportive.
So here's where I'm going to put you in the spotlight. Before you had your disability, you were always cognizant of my needs as a person and as one of your friends who were pretty much like family who has a physical disability. It's so funny because sometimes a lot of people, I will befriend them, and shortly after I'll hear things like, I noticed, or I just realized that this place is not accessible. So my point is, you don't have to have a disability to be an advocate. Just like, I am very much an advocate for the LGBTQ community because it just holds a special place in my heart. But I don't belong to that community. I'm just an advocate. So when people with disabilities are asking for something, especially when it is something that will lend to more equitable experience for them, speak up. Speak up. Be an ally. Whether it be online or showing up to a rally with them, or asking a question and pointing out experiences that aren't accessible. It's the only way that we're going to get anywhere, is together. And I mean, I'm a pretty spiritual person. Not very many people realize it about me, but I honestly believe that two things. If our creator wanted us to do everything on our own, everybody would be the same, have the same abilities, not need anything from anybody else, but that's not the case. We all have different levels of ability because we're supposed to work together. That was its intention. And that's honestly what I believe. There's a lot of things that able-bodied people cannot do that I can do, and vice versa. So rather than looking at the disability, I think you should really try to see people's abilities, because everyone has value. And I truly believe that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and knowledge with us this afternoon. To learn more about Jennifer or to get in contact with her, please visit her website at jenniferkumiyama.org. I'm going to spell that because I think I messed up your name, although I probably said it like a million times. It's jenniferkumiyama.org, JenniferKumiyama.org, not .com. I don't know why you're a .org and not a .com, but we'll talk about that later. But but thank you so much for spending the past hour with us. Have a happy Saturday, and I hope you're enjoying the rest of MAMFest.
Thank you so much, MAMFest, for having me. Thank you, Kalen. This was awesome.
Thank you. See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.